are government MREs. As defined by the Department of Defense, it's a meal ready to eat, designed to sustain an individual engaged in heavy activity, such as military training or during actual military operations when normal food services are not available. They're for government use only. These are not available to the general public. If you see these on Amazon, eBay, Craigslist, or any place else, don't buy them, don't eat them, and don't save them. They could make you sick and possibly kill you. It's not because the food is bad. It's because they're usually expired sometimes for years. Sellers are advertising the MREs last 10 to 12 years. Well, that's total bullshit. According to the Department of Defense's own website, they only last 2 to 3 years unless frozen. I'm going to explain why you need to avoid these if you want to stay alive. First, let's talk about the fact that it's illegal to even sell these to the public. And you don't have to believe me. It says so right here on the package, which makes the people selling these criminals. And believe it or not, criminals will say anything or do anything to advance and protect their criminal enterprise. Also consider the fact that the main package and none of the food inside has an expiration date or a manufacturing date. So it really is impossible to know how old the meals really are. They could be 2, 3, 5, 10, or even 20 years old. So how does Mr. Dog Poop know they're expired? Well, I opened a bunch of these from different sellers, and occasionally 1 or 2 items does have a use-by date because they're off-the-shelf products, like this bag of M&Ms that expired 3 years ago. It's unlikely that the government would allow one item in the meal to expire years before the rest of the meal. So we have to infer that the rest of the meal is years past its intended use. Just look at this seller. They admit it was packed as long ago as 2012, right in their ad. If the DoD says it's good for 3 years, then these meals have been expired for 9 years. Then you're going to put it on a shelf, store it for a few more years. First, you have to understand, these meals were never packaged, prepared, or intended to be saved as long-term food storage. They're made of regular food products that you can buy off the shelf. Nothing special or extraordinary is done to preserve them. So they won't last any longer than any other food product. Most canned food can usually last 2 to 3 years, depending on the contents. Acidic foods like tomatoes will not last as long as something like peas or beans. That's because the acidic foods deteriorate the inside of the can over time, making the food unsafe. Even though the canned food may still be bacteria-free many years later, there are still chemical processes occurring inside the can that can modify the food quality, taste, and even generate toxins. Of course, some will tell you and argue that canned food will last indefinitely because people eat it every week on The Walking Dead, and nobody has ever died from it. So I would challenge those people to go eat a 10-year-old can of meat, because it's better for your stupidity to put you in the hospital now rather than 10 years deep into a zombie apocalypse when there are no hospitals. Of course, food can be preserved for long-term storage like these freeze-dried meals. They can last 35 years or more because the water has been removed and there are no active chemical reactions occurring in the cans. Processes such as removing water, oxygen, or radiation can extend food storage time. But the DoD contract doesn't ask for any of these processes, because if they did, the packs would not be flexible and they would not be ready to eat. They would require much more time to prepare and not suit the intended purpose. So MREs are just average packaged food, packaged by commercial food companies for the government. Just as the name says, this is a meal ready to eat, not much different than you making lunch for your children to eat at school. This is something that a soldier can carry in their backpack and eat when they have time. The DoD expects and tells you the meal needs to be consumed in the next 2 years, not 12 years like the Amazon and eBay sellers. The thing is, people are buying these and putting them on shelves thinking they will have food years from now, but they will likely already be bad when you buy them. These were and never will be meant to be stored on a shelf waiting for the shit to hit the fan. If that's your plan and that day comes and this is what you have to eat, it'll probably make you sick, which is the last thing you want in a survival situation. So how do these end up on Amazon and eBay? And where are the criminals getting these meals to sell? Well, the DoD actually sells them, but not for retail sale and not to the general public. They sell them to defense contractors with employees in remote locations or other federal agencies. But it should come as no surprise that people steal them. Federal employees and employees of federal contractors have access to them. They grab a case here and there, and when nobody's looking, they throw it in their car. Then we have unattended disposal. When they get old and unused, somebody throws them in a dumpster, and some dumpster diver takes them out and sells them. You would not believe how much stuff on eBay was actually retrieved from a dumpster. That is something to think about when you're buying food from a non-food vendor. Here's an Amazon seller that shows the box was packed in 2 of 21. Now, by my calculation, it's 2 of 24. So that's exactly 3 years ago. The 3 years that the government says you can eat these. This is likely discarded in a dumpster, and now it's for sale on Amazon. Either way, there's no authorization to sell any of these meals, and there's no way to know if they're safe to eat. So do not eat them. Do not save them. Do not buy them. This is a scam. It's illegal, and you'll regret it if you need to open them in an emergency and end up in the hospital with food poisoning. And you don't have to look too far to see more of these scams. People are selling all types of non-operational, expired, and clearly no longer functional items on the internet. And most of the time, they have some fine print establishing that it's being sold as a prop or for cosplay and should not be used as originally intended. That's not the case with the MREs. These MREs are being represented as fresh, safe, and that they will remain fresh for many years past the date they were originally intended. That's why you must avoid these at all costs. You will get more life and nutrition out of this can of beef stew, some egg noodles, or this box of minute rice than a beef MRE that costs many times more. Buy items like these cans of freeze-dried food, which do last decades and just require water to rehydrate. Do not buy these MREs, and if you do not assume they're safe to eat. Food safety is no joke. The CDC estimates that each year, 1 out of 6 Americans, 48 million people get sick. 128,000 of those are hospitalized, and 3,000 people actually die. So please, do not risk your life on one of these overpriced, illegal, and likely expired MREs. I didn't fucking do anything. I'm trying to get through this fucking thing. I don't need to fucking goddamn spend 30 minutes trying to fix the goddamn fucking audio.